trace it. My body, head, and soul. Many miles away, I could start a perfect story. Find myself and find no glory. This deceptive world, giving me the sign, giving me the sign. Giving me the sign, giving me the sign.
Welcome everyone to the Sci-fi Queens, where we explore the female characters in science fiction television shows, movies, books, games, art, and anywhere female characters in science fiction are depicted. If you are new to our channel, we ask that you hit that subscribe and notification bell so you'll know when we are on and you can join us and we welcome you. My name is Nita. I am your host, and joining me tonight is my co-host Sarah. How are you doing,
Hi.
Sarah?
Good. How are you, Nita?
I'm good. Now tonight we're going to be discussing a very classic science fiction novel. Okay, it's called Flatlands, a romance of many dimensions, written by Edward A. Abbott and first published in 1884. So this is a very old book. Okay, and it is actually pretty fantastic read for its time. It really was ahead of its time. Okay, and it really talks about the inequality um, of social class between men and women, but we can really just apply it to so many things still going on today, as many things that has improved and changed for men and women. There's still many things that can be improved and changed, even within science fiction. But I think that one thing we can agree is science fiction has addressed almost all types of discriminations, if not
hmm
all, and has been in the forefront of many issues of social injustice. Um, so one of the things about Flatlands you should know is the author takes shapes like a straight line, a square, a circle to represent the different classes in social standing. Okay. And I got some images here to help us understand before we go into it completely. Now, the women were represented in the book as being a straight line. Okay. The noble class was the hexagon. Triangles had two different images. Okay, there was the triangles with the even sides; those were the soldiers and the workman class, and then you had the triangles with the uneven sides. They each represented something different. The squares were the gentlemen and the professionals, like lawyers and doctors. And then the circles with the high priest, the noblemen, those were the upperclassmen. I think this image also really gives you a better understanding of the triangle. Um, you see how this triangle has two even sides, the one on the top, and a longer bottom than the second one. Those are the differences in the sides. Now, Sarah, uh, I read the book
hmm
years ago, but this time around, for a refresher, I did the audiobook, which, by the way, guys, in Audibles, the audiobook is free, not even with a credit you need to download it. This one is free. Um, and it actually was an easier understanding of the book with the Audible. What was your impression? This your first time reading the book?
Yeah, and I did the audiobook too,
Mm,
and I thought it was because I tried reading it, and it was just I was having a hard time with it because it was so many geometry terms.
yes.
For lack of a better
Mm,
name, it was just so much, not math specifically, but just technical terms. It was kind of like reading a. It was almost. It almost had the sound and feel of reading like a manual.
yes.
I mean, I know it was written as a description of the society from a society members, like the mid echelons, um, view of what he saw around him,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still kind of read like a tech manual, like this is this and this is this.
That's what I thought so as well. That's why I felt that the Audible book really
Hmm.
gave the book life. And
Yes,
of course, in 1884, there was no such thing as Audibles, right?
right.
So people had to kind of read it, and the I thought it was fantastic that someone in that was so ahead of his time,
Yes.
his outlook on things, because he wasn't really agreeing with this social class. He's saying this is a social class. This is how ridiculous these social class are. These
Well,
are
y-
the kind of the pressures you're putting on
right,
people.
and it's kind of to me, like in that light, it seemed
Hmm.
like he was calling out the classism
Hmm.
without calling out the classism,
Hmm.
so he wouldn't get in trouble, if that makes sense. That
Yeah,
he would
absolutely.
that like we're gonna call it out and like tell it like it is, but we're gonna do it with shapes, so it's not people, so people don't get mad.
Hmm.
But this is what's really going on.
Yes, but that is very true. Um, in science fiction, whenever you see sci-fi TV shows or movies addressing a social standing, it's always in a science fiction kind of point of view, where you're not really seeing the social situation directly for us here on Earth, but so
Right.
much indirectly. And if you pay attention, you'll learn
Yeah.
something interesting.
Yes. And that's like there's it's that the joy of sci-fi is it's you're able to view other societies through the filter of our society, if that makes sense, and like
Yes.
how their society compares to ours, and how that makes sense, and
Hmm.
it just doesn't, it's just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the way in the book women are represented as being the lesser sex.
Hmm.
They weren't taught to read or write or do mathematics, which apparently, if you really pay attention throughout the book, it's really an important subject, right?
Yes.
And even the in the narrator's point of view, he is a lawyer, right? So he's
Yeah.
educated, and he's one of those professional gentlemen. He's a
Yes.
square, he's a professional gentleman. um and the women aren't given those opportunities, even though they do acknowledge that some women are smarter than others, but they're too emotional, which is how people are
Hmm.
viewed women, not just in those days, but in this day. How
Yeah.
many times has in Star Trek Discovery, Captain uh Michael Burnham have not been criticized for showing emotion, when every captain Star Trek has ever had showed emotion.
Right, it's not just her, it's
Yeah,
every captain. It's just now that it's a strong female lead, people are like, "Oh, well, we can't have that." But like
yeah.
if you even go all the way back to Kirk, Kirk was emotional as heck. He always I mean, he
Yes, he
always seemed,
was.
he
Mhm.
seemed, everybody makes fun of the and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. But then, he was always he was kissing aliens and kissing women and getting angry and, you know, quick to jump to conclusions. So I mean, Kirk was super like touchy.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing. And there's nothing wrong with having feelings. It doesn't make or break you. It just identifies you as being human.
Yeah, it's just part of the
Hmm.
human condition.
Yeah. I mean, even you know, the way that the straight line had to walk.
Yeah, that's what
Um, yeah,
yeah, that they have to walk and shake their back, which was, I took it as hips and butt, so
yes,
that they could be differentiated from a circle
yes,
from the side, because you can only see them on that parallel.
Yep.
So if you're on that horizon and you see them, if they're walking, there's no way to distinguish them from a circle unless they are undulating from side to side, and then you know it's a girl.
Exactly, which really is about the putting the pressure of how women should walk. We are women because we are women. It's not because how we walk. We just
Right.
are women. And men are men because they are men, not because of anything other than that, you know?
Right.
And the image I have up now is the homes. The homes was really interesting to me. The separate doors for the men and the women. Um,
Well, it's
and
because, and I took note of that it's because the women were always like needle shaped, like an
yes,
actual, like a sewing needle, and then
mm-hmm,
and men were squares, or and more quadrilaterals.
yes.
And um but where women, so women always come in this door because they fit. And I mean, I did pick up on that um they had to be careful because, like, if a woman got upset, she could cause great harm, because she could, even if she got pissed and was running around, she'd pierce everybody and kill everybody.
Yes, because she was a straight line,
Yep.
as we can see here. She was
Hmm.
a straight line. And straight lines can be dangerous.
Well,
So she was
yeah,
viewed as dangerous, you
which
know?
is which is another reason why I think they kept them uneducated and um isolated, is
Yes.
because if the women got together, banded together, they could wipe everybody out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I find it very interesting how even in today's society, we keep hearing. I grew up where, when it comes to electing a female president, the rest of the world, we're the only ones still fighting on that one.
Yeah.
Canada, the UK has had a female prime minister.
Oh yeah.
Ireland has had a prime minister that was female. So many different countries have had a female prime minister, a female leader. How many years did England have a queen? I mean, that was, it's so women in leadership is not a something that is uh a stranger, right? It's not something that's
Right.
odd. But here I don't know about you, but I grew up hearing, no, this country is not ready. This country's not ready. Do you really
Yeah.
need to be ready?
Well, then it was always that, oh, and then the argument too, that, well, what happens if she's on that time of the month and she gets upset and she nukes
Yes,
somebody,
that's an
like,
actual conversation.
right? And it's like, that's, men think that, but that's not how women think. I
No.
mean, women
Mm-mm.
are, I hate to tell you guys, but like, cold and calculating, not like random.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to
Mhm.
say. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just
It's
it.
it's it
Yeah.
we as women are more calculating. We are capable of so much.
Well,
Okay? And when you stop us from being able to do the things that we know we can do, it affects the entire world. We wouldn't have gotten into getting the men on the moon had it not been for the calculations of brilliant women.
right.
Okay, we wouldn't have penicillin if it wasn't for a woman.
Woman.
And
Yep.
how many of us have been saved by penicillin? You don't see it that way, but before penicillin, that cold would have killed you, that infection would have killed you.
Hmm.
I mean, if you're allergic to penicillin, then the penicillin will get you.
Yeah, but there's
uh,
there's other antibiotics that have
yeah.
been derived since then. So, but
Mhm.
it's
But
still,
it was because
it
of a
started a
woman's.
whole
Yes,
science of preventative
absolutely.
medicine.
Absolutely. And it was New York is city here where I'm at. We're known for having these very old and big hospitals that have been around
Hmm.
for a long time. Most of these hospitals were started by nuns,
Yep.
by women, okay, that cared for those who were sick in locations in New York City that at the time didn't have healthcare options. Um,
Hmm.
we are making strides not because you're allowing us to make the strides, but because we've always had those those abilities, just not the opportunity,
Right.
you know? And I think that this book really speaks to what women are capable of. And if we look at ourselves, I mean, we still do it. People who are rich say, "Oh, that is something poor people do," or they
Yeah.
still there is still classism in our society here in America and in abroad. It's not just about being noble and being a lord or being this or having title, but
Right.
really about how you look at the person next to you, you know?
Yes.
And did you enjoy the book?
Uh, yeah. I mean, it was a little, but it wasn't. I don't know what I was expecting. It wasn't. Maybe that's what was different about it. That it was just wasn't what I was expecting. Um, and once I can get past the eugenics stuff
Talk to
and
me
the,
about the eugenics, because you brought that up.
yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, it just seems to me that like when I started listening to it, and um he's talking about how they're born and they gotta be a certain way, and if they're irregular at all, they have to go to a hospital and be evaluated and see if they can be repaired, and that they all have to be at this ideal for each class, and it's like that's eugenics. And that's
Yeah,
and that that's not just the classism. I mean, there's classism there too, but it's the eugenics. It's the ethnic cleansing, and the killing and the absorption of all the aberrations and the odd shapes, and it was
yeah,
just. And then even in the higher classes, how they take their babies if they weren't born with enough extra sides, that they take their babies and put them in the neonatal reconstruction, and they'd break all their sides and then rebuild them with more sides, and only like 1 in 1,000 would survive, but that one that jumped 5 or 6 generations ahead of where they should have been was enough to spur the other parents on. And it's like,
yeah,
I don't know who you are. I don't care how super rich you are or how upper echelon you are. Why are y'all sacrificing your kids
yes.
to better your standing?
But
It
that
just
was exactly how people view the world. If you had a child who was a little person, right? They're born.
yeah.
That's something that you can physically see when a child is born,
Yeah.
because their torso is bigger than their limbs, right?
Yeah.
If the child is born with Down syndrome, what
Anything.
did
Yeah.
people do back then? They put them in an institution. It
Yeah, they put them in
immediately,
orphanages
yes,
and
orphanage institution,
group homes,
groups,
hospitals. Yeah.
homes, hospitals. They
Dumped them with the
didn't
carnival.
they didn't want them associated with the immediate family
Yeah.
unless you represented the immediate family looking a certain way.
Yeah.
Um, and that is something that we still see today. We
Yeah.
have what they call the almond moms, okay, that are so overwhelming about and fearful that their child is going to be overweight that they nitpick every little meal that this child has, right? Because you have
Yeah.
to look a certain way. Or growing up for me was my hair, right? My mom had really straight hair. I have very curly hair. I straighten out today, but but growing up you had to straighten out your hair,
Yeah.
because if you left your hair curly, it was considered messy. It was considered that you didn't comb your hair and
Mhm.
you didn't look as nice. So there is a fact that image and how you represent yourself
Yes.
came into play. And this book is telling you none of that really matters. It's all ridiculous. Look at how it sounds in this
Right.
sci-fi kind of way. I mean, you're a
Well,
mom.
yeah.
You, I'm sure, have seen so many things with other moms, with play
Mhm.
groups. If you don't mind sharing some of those things
Well,
that
it's
are
just like
relevant.
well, it's like I've tried really hard not to force Leah into any certain type of toy group. Like she's always had free access to whatever toys she wants,
Hmm.
because like I only was allowed to play with Barbies when I was growing up, and
Yes.
like I wanted cars too, but I wasn't allowed to have them because those were boy toys.
Mhm.
And, I didn't want that for her. So, she has a lot of Barbies, but she also has a lot of cars and a lot of Nerf guns and stuff that, and lightsabers and action figures, things that aren't typically considered girl toys, but
Yeah.
they're toys. And
Yeah.
toys shouldn't have a gender. A
Yeah.
child should, that's like, this is going to sound silly, but I wanted to mail a friend of mine some socks, and they had recently transitioned. So I asked before I mailed them their socks. I said, these are the socks that I have, and I want to make sure they're okay to send because, they might be a little feminine. And he said, socks don't have a gender. Send what you want. And, and that, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, you're right. And that's exactly right. That
Yeah.
clothing, socks, toys, those things shouldn't be gendered. And I mean, it kind of feels like it's off topic, but it's not, because
It's not off topic
because
because that's
it's
exactly what they were doing to these people.
right. And that's what they're saying. It's like, if they're not, they can't tell, like, if you have the wrong shape, like, well, like, take for instance, when the narrator went to Lineland, and because he didn't have two voices, an alto and a baritone, he only had his baritone, that the
Mhm.
king said he was a she because he only had one voice. And it's kind of like, and it's just kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Why would you think that?
Yeah.
And it goes back to that, it's the way we perceive things, and it's
Yeah.
just and realizing now that the book was written in 1884, that kind of blows my mind. And that somebody had, I can't say the word I want to say, so I'll just say the wherewithal to, um
Or the presence of mind.
yes, you know what I'm saying, that
Mhm.
to come out and say these things and not just let it go. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it blows my mind. And that,
Yep. And I
and
think
just,
that here is where you find a male ally, right? The
yeah.
author of the book, Edward A. Abbott, definitely with this book have become, I think, a symbol of an ally because women wasn't going to be heard, especially those that were poor, right? They're definitely not going to be heard. The men were barely heard if they were poor, let alone the women. And
Right.
here we have someone who clearly comes from a place of education, right? Because
Hmm.
not see, we all think everyone can read and write, but that's a today thing, not an 1800 thing. In
Yeah.
1884, not everybody was able to read and write.
Hmm.
Only the educated, and education was not standard for everyone. So this is
No.
someone who was definitely from money, definitely an educated individual, and here he is saying these social classes make no sense. These social classes hinder growth.
And
They
they do.
hinder and they absolutely do, because they keep people from achieving. They keep people from achieving.
They keep you, they keep you, um basically, you keep getting told to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
And, mind your business,
Hmm.
stay in your lane.
Yeah.
And accept your fate. Don't social climb. And that's what, they talk about that in this, that you can't marry up. And that,
Yes.
and then, one of the things that really kind of like made me, was, they were talking about that if you had any, if a woman had any sort of deviant angle in her parental or
You wouldn't be
grandparental,
married.
yeah, they weren't eligible for marriage. So then, like, they might as well just be, killed or, absorbed, because
Yep.
they weren't worth anything. And I'm like,
Yep.
but you can't help that.
Yep.
And it's just like,
Yep.
that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
And it
But these are
just,
the things that we see today. The classism, the
well,
colorism.
and they did,
Yeah.
talk about that, and that's, and I do, I know that classism, that, like, you can't marry outside your station. And, like, how, and it goes all the way back to, like, well, like even in Disney movies, like, look at Aladdin, and like how she fell in love with the pauper, but, it's basically the prince and the princess and the pauper, but he, he wasn't allowed to because she couldn't marry below her station.
Exactly.
And then her dad said, "Well, why can't you? Let's change the
Hmm.
rules." And
Yeah.
that's all it takes is just somebody saying, "Well, let's just change the
Let's change
rules."
the rules. But there was a time in this country, in America,
Hmm.
where someone who was a person of color couldn't marry someone who was white. It was
Right.
considered illegal. And then when it became legal, it was only legal in certain states. So your
Hmm.
marriage you had to stay within those states for it to be recognized.
Well, and
Um,
it's still we still have that problem um with same sex marriages
yes.
and people not gender non-conforming people
Hmm.
are experiencing this right now, and that's where we're having problems in
Yeah.
here in this country, is that people are like, no, stay in your lane, and no, you can't do that, and that's actually it's a really big political issue right now.
Exactly. And let me tell you something. Science, you're wondering, what does any of this have to do with science fiction? First of all, the book is science fiction.
Yeah.
Because it also takes place in a different dimension. It's not
Yeah.
this dimension. That dimension is not a three. See, we're three dimensional.
Hmm.
They're two dimensional. So they're a different dimension. But science fiction has
Yeah.
addressed social issues from the
Since the
very
beginning.
beginning of
Yeah.
its time. Okay. It is something that we have seen. We saw in Star Trek the first interracial kiss. They made it so that an alien race was involved in it, and they had to fight. Lucille Ball had to fight for that scene to stay on. Um, as someone who was in an interracial marriage herself, she understood the value of showing that during a
Hmm.
time when that was not okay. Having what people don't understand, during the 60s and 70s, having a uh, a character who was Russian, a character who was Japanese, um,
Hmm.
on the bridge was a huge deal, okay?
Well, yeah.
Because we had serious problems with the Japanese and the Russians, and it was really a hot, heavy topic at the time. So putting those individual characters in the forefront, in the back, in right there in the bridge crew, made people have to deal with it. See,
Yeah.
one thing I love about science fiction is they slap you in the face with reality. One of the things I learned from actually the Orville, they have this episode where actually the captain talks about flatlands because they get caught up in this two-dimensional space,
Yeah.
and because they're three-dimensional, the three-dimensional life forms or lights that they believe might be life forms can't really communicate with them. But she's talking to his first officer is talking to him and tells him everyone gets help somehow or another. We all help each other. Sometimes we know that we're being helped, and sometimes we don't know that we're being helped. But it doesn't take anything away from you, right? Because there was
Yeah.
the whole scenario with them where he finds out that she was the one who pushed one of her father's best friends, who was an admiral, to get him to the captain's chair, and he
Right.
did not react very well when he finds that out. He thought he did it all on his own. We don't do things on our own. So I'm not anti having that support, having those allies, as long as we know and respect each other's space, is where I'm getting. And one thing
Yeah.
science fiction has been is an ally, is a supporter of the social injustices and social situations that they're facing. Even like with Doctor Who coming up, what a fantastic few episodes they've had. If
Oh,
you
yeah.
haven't watched it, definitely watch it. I cannot wait.
Wait, and neither can I.
Okay, because the first episode with the new Doctor Who, and Black Doctor Who is the first official Black Doctor Who that has episodes. See, and just like the first female Doctor Who had episodes, during
Yeah.
her time, it was revealed there was once a female Black Doctor Who, but she didn't
Yeah.
have a series, right?
No.
So having that series really makes a difference. And now we have this character, and he's in a club. You see him in a club. You see the Doctor Who in a club, but
Yeah.
he's wearing at first I was like, is it a kilt?
Yeah, it was a kilt.
It was a kilt, but I was
Yeah.
like, is it a skirt? Is it a kilt? And he's
Yeah.
dancing in the club, and they make no issue of it. They make
Nope.
no mention of it. He goes on to changing into his regular Doctor Who outfit that I think he's going to be wearing. My
Yeah.
point is, those subtle little things make a difference. So maybe in Europe, the kilt, a man wearing kilt is not a big deal. But for us here in America, a man wearing a kilt is just a man wearing a skirt. That's how we see it, right? And it makes a difference with people who are non-conforming, who are gender fluid, who want to dress the way they want to dress without it of reflecting who they love. And these little subtleties
Mhm.
make a huge difference.
Well, and
Huge
representation
difference.
matters.
Yes. And
Um,
science fiction has done nothing but represent, I think.
yes, and that's like the more, and like especially like even with
Mhm.
this show, like what Jace was talking about last week, that we as females weren't represented in the podcast realm. So here we are.
Yeah.
And that, that people like me who and you and there's plenty of others that are huge fans, and we don't see anything that's representative of us. Um
Exactly.
and it's good to have that, and to even see it in the shows and everything, and in all these shows. It's like I know she's your favorite, but Olivia Dunham was a really
Yes.
she was I mean, even more so than Agent Scully, she was even more independent. And because Scully was a doctor, and she was an agent, so like she kind of had some stuff going on, and it was okay to be a doctor, but like, and then she was only there because she was a doctor. But
Hmm.
like, Agent Dunham is an FBI agent, and she's an
She
FBI
was a
agent.
lawyer. She started out
Yeah.
as a
Yep.
lawyer who,
Yeah.
and came in rough because
Yep.
even the person who she answered to wasn't too thrilled with her.
Right.
And she had to work hard to prove herself. Now, w- at what point in science fiction did you see yourself represented? What TV or movie did you feel I am represented as a woman, as a white woman with what represented you?
Deep Space Nine.
Really,
I
talk to
Yeah,
me.
I really identified with Dax. Because I'm not non-binary, but I'm not entirely 100% girly girl. I know you know that.
Mhm.
I drift more towards the middle. Uh, and just the way that Dax was, and that used to be a man, and is okay to be fighting, and to do sports, and do whatever she wanted, basically, and also have the feminine side, and do what she wanted. It just, to me, that was it, and that was because I could see myself in her, and then I felt like I was represented, because it's like, hey, I identify with this character, because yes, because she's had men in her past, her past hosts, and had those lives. I mean, there'd been plenty of women too, but there was men
I
too,
think that we
and
could
that
also
just
safely say that Dak's character could possibly, and I don't know if I'm wrong or not, let me know. And if I am wrong, I apologize. But sometimes I wonder, is this our first little tiny intro to trans?
yes, because because like when she meets her Klingon friends, and he says, Corazon, my beloved brother, and he says, well, it's Dax now. Oh, Jadzia, my beloved sister, and then that was it.
He
And
didn't care.
yeah, because he's a Klingon, and it was just
Mhm.
acceptance, and that is the epitome of what Star Trek is and represents, and that's acceptance. And we're all looking for that, and even in this book, I mean, as long it was odd, but I mean, he was calling that out,
Yeah,
that
he was.
these things were not okay, to be treating women this way, to be treating the lesser class. I mean, he even called the lower class called them serfs. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, no, you didn't. It's like,
Because that's how
oh,
they spoke back then
yeah.
also.
And well,
One thing you
that's,
guys have to know, if you're reading the book or doing the audio, remember, it was published in 1884. Language evolves and changes. A lot of the wordings and the way we say things aren't said that way
well,
anymore.
it's like, and I hear serfs and
Mhm.
I think castles and feudalism. And
Yes.
I was just like, but no, but he was, I mean, that was, you would think that, well, that's not the right word, but that is the right word, because when you really think about it, classism is still, it is feudalism. It is. It's like there's the upper echelon, and then there's the, there's the king, and then
Mhm.
there's the upper class, the royalty, and then there's, the upper middle class, and then there's the middle, the working class, and then
Yes.
there's the lower class. And it's just, wait, what? Like, and that's the same system that he was talking about, and that's what's represented by these shapes in this story. And it boggles my mind, because it's like, here in America, we left England for that reason,
Yet we
to get away
created
from
our
it.
own classism.
And then, just instead of like, okay, well, I'm going to go over here and start something new, but instead of starting something new, we're going to do exactly the same thing but call it something different.
Exactly. Well, we're going to take a small commercial break, and then we're going to come back uh, and introduce you to the female scientist that Sarah has chosen for this week. As here at the Sci-Fi Queens, we are always supporting Jace, and his film and industry, his film work. So definitely check out his
Yes.
website, and check out all the work that he's done, and see what he can do for you. So now we're going to. All right, Sarah, take it away.
Okay. This week, I picked Christina Hammock Koch as our real woman of science. Christina is an American engineer and NASA astronaut. She is a native of Grand Rapids, Michigan, grew up in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and resided in Livingston, Montana before relocating to Houston, Texas to join the astronaut corps. She enjoys backpacking, rock climbing, paddling, surfing, running, yoga, community service, photography, and travel. She's got lots of hobbies. Christina Koch attended high school at the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics in Durham, North Carolina, and White Oak High School in Jacksonville, North Carolina. While attending NCSU in Raleigh, she earned bachelor's in electrical engineering and physics, and then her master's in electrical engineering. She also received an honorary PhD from NCSU in 2020. Koch's career prior to becoming an astronaut spanned both space science, instrument development, and remote scientific field engineering. Her career began as an electrical engineer at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center Laboratory for High Energy Astrophysics, with both space science instrument development and remote scientific field engineering. She participated in the NASA Academy program in 2001 and worked for NASA from 2002 to 2004. Uh, she continued in scientific instruments on several she contributed to scientific instruments on several NASA space science missions. Koch then became a research associate at the U.S. Antarctic Program. This included a year-long stay at the South Pole Station and a season at Palmer Station. While in this role, she served as a member of the firefighting and search and rescue teams, both good in my book. She
Absolutely.
she then returned to space science instrument development at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory Space Department. She contributed to instruments on missions including the Juno and Van Allen probes. The Juno probe is still orbiting Jupiter, and the Van Allen probes, aka the radiation belt storm probes, were used to study the Van Allen radiation belt that surrounds the Earth. She then returned to scientific fieldwork with tours at the Palmer Station in Antarctica, and then multiple winter seasons at Summit Station in Greenland, and then various other remote postings, including several with NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. In 2013, Koch was selected as one of 8 members of the 21st NASA astronaut class. In 2018, she was assigned to her first space flight, a long-duration mission on the International Space Station. While aboard the ISS, she and her crewmates contributed to hundreds of experiments in biology, earth science, human research, physical science, and technology development. Some of the scientific highlights from her missions include improvements to the alpha magnetic spectrometer, which studies dark matter, growing protein crystals for pharmaceutical research, and testing 3D biological printers to print tissue in microgravity, which is getting closer and closer to replicators.
That's right.
Christine conducted 6 spacewalks, including the first 3 all-female spacewalks, totaling 42 hours and 15 minutes in space. She spent a total of 328 days in space and returned to Earth on February 6, 2020. She will be making her second flight to space on the Artemis II mission as a mission specialist. Artemis II is a vital step to getting us back to the surface of the moon. While they will not land on the surface, they will venture around the moon, laying the groundwork for NASA to establish a long-term presence on the moon for science and exploration through the entire Artemis program. Artemis II is scheduled to launch in September of 2025. She has contributed so much already and still has so much more to contribute to science and space exploration.
Wow.
Yes,
She
I
is
told you
amazing.
it's going to be a long
And
one
this
today.
is her social media
Hmm.
information. We also have that there for you guys to follow her
And
on her missions.
in that picture there, she's actually working on a gene therapy study.
That is amazing work that she is doing.
Hmm.
I love the fact that she was on an all-female spacewalk,
Hmm.
and she's really breaking those barriers down.
Yes.
Yet again, another innovator, female innovator.
Yep.
It is definitely something to be proud of.
Yeah.
She is amazing.
Well,
Definitely an excellent selection.
that's why I went looking for somebody, and I'm like, let me go find an engineer, and then I found her, and I just like, oh my gosh, she is so cool. Uh, Like, and I
That
didn't
is
even
true.
before this, I didn't even know we were trying to get back to the moon.
Yeah,
Uh,
we definitely need to get back.
yeah, and it's not just going to the moon and visiting, like long term establishing like a space station on the moon and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we definitely need to get someone to step foot on the moon again.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Now, normally at this point, we would do a sci-fi book recommendation. However, our book recommendation is Flatlands, A Romance of Many Dimensions. I think that if you haven't read the book, or even if you have, try the audiobook. On Audible, it is free. You don't even need a credit or anything to download and listen to it. It is, I think, 3 hours long in Audible, which is
Um,
not
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
That's good,
it's
4 hours.
4 hours,
Yeah,
and the narrator is I like his voice,
I
and
like him.
he gives good inflection when he's um reading it, and like stops at the right spots and pauses right, like because
Yes,
I
agreed.
was because it was so technical, that's why I went with the Audible, but I also had it open on my Kindle, so like I was following along on the pages, I'm reading,
Yes,
swiping, so I can see if, and like when he refers to the diagrams, then I can look at them, which
yes.
might be helpful for our readers, that if you listen to it, you might want to have it open on your Kindle too, so you can reference the pictures and stuff, because they do make
Yes,
references to those sketches.
they do. And as someone who read the book first, I have to say, I did enjoy the Audible much, but I think the narrator again, he was fantastic. But I do agree, seeing the images along with the information that's being given,
And then
it is helpful.
he doesn't read it like it's it's a user's manual. He reads it like it's a story, and that changed it for me.
Yes. I really felt like he really embodied the
The character.
character of that he was reading, that he was
Yes.
narrating as. We do have an announcement that I want to share with you all, and that is that we have a merch store that is open as of today. And that merch store, if you want to support or participate with Sci-Fi Queens, that merch store will help pay for our streaming service that we use is StreamYard, and it will help us be able to do more and bring you more quality work. So the more that you support us, the more we can bring you more podcasts that you would enjoy. And I took a few images, not of everything that we have, but just kind of a few things that we have in the merch store. We do have phone cases for iPhone and Samsung, and that's just the base color. They do have different colors that you guys can select from. And we have, I love these sandals and the tote bag. And these tote bags are really nice because you can go shopping, put your grocery in it if you just have a few things, or you could use it, to travel. It's a very nice, sturdy bag. And of course, the coffee mug and the apron. I have Sci-Fi Queens glass cup. They didn't have those anymore. The merchandise does change, so I'm going to be on top of it, making sure that we get more stuff and kind of recycle things around. We have this beautiful pendant, and also this beautiful notebook that you can use. There's also a Christmas ornament. So just go to our website. The link is going to be in our description in our page. The description is all our in all our link tree description in Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. It's on there already, but this is our our merch store. So it would be wonderful if you can support us and help us with this endeavor. It will be fantastic, as well as subscribing and all of those wonderful things.
Yes.
So we do have quite a few things on there outside of what I've shown you. There's more. There's about 15 different items, some t-shirts as well, hoodies, things like that. There's a heavy tee and then a lighter t-shirts. If you don't like a heavy t-shirt, the sizes are pretty inclusive. So it's not bad. I have a couple of t-shirts, the Captain Squadrons t-shirt. I have a sci-fi t-shirt from there. I am a plus size person, as you know. So it is important to me also as a cosplayer, as a plus size cosplayer, that sizes are inclusive and work, and they definitely do
That's
work.
good.
Yeah, so this is exciting. Do truly appreciate you guys supporting us and making this possible for us. There'll be more announcements put out there with that information as well. But now we're going to go to our next segment, a podcast recommendation. Okay, now we have a few podcasts that we like to recommend. If you have a podcast that you want me to check out, let me know what it is after the show. Put it in the comment section. If you put it here, I may forget to write it down and check it out, and I don't want to do that. So let me know, and I'll check out the podcast. And you never know, we might feature it here. Now this is, of course, my buddy Jace, VHS Jace. He takes you through a nostalgic journey with live streams and video clips. So check him out, support him as well. We have Pop Culture Spread, which is a movie streaming news podcast every Friday and Saturday night. Friday nights at 6:30 Eastern Time, and Saturdays at 9 a.m. I believe that's Australian time. And they just do updates and reviews on movies and TV shows, pop culture news with a little Australian twist and style. And they also give you a lot of information on Australian TV. I like foreign television shows, like British shows and Australian shows. How about you, Sarah?
Oh, I like Australian shows. I do.
Absolutely fantastic. Besides the fact that the cinematography is always gorgeous,
Oh
they're
yeah.
really good shows.
Yes.
Yeah, and now we have Jace and Jason at the Jason Roy Gaston channel, and they have a few podcasts going on there, where they have "If You Disagree, You're Wrong," which is a really funny take on their reviews on the latest shows on different streaming networks. They have the Power of Jace. For those who are fans of the show, that's definitely going to take you back. So definitely check them out. And then, of course, my buddy Joe and Jason in the Captain Squadron every Friday night at 9 p.m. They take you through every TV series and movie, animated, live. If it's Star Trek, they have it and they'll review it. So definitely check them out if you are a Star Trek fan. And Joe also has another podcast with Ernesto called the Council Room Podcast, where they talk everything Doctor Who every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And this is very knowledgeable on Doctor Who.
Hmm.
Definitely give them a try and check them out because they're really good. I have checked them out. And let me tell you, anything that I recommend here, I've seen at least a few times before I bring them on. So it's something that I'm not asking you to do that I have not done myself. We also have the Nerdy Up North guys. I
Yeah, I
love
like
these
them.
guys. They
Yeah.
have four different podcasts under their umbrella. They
Hmm.
have they just create a beautiful nerdy community where any nerd can be free and safe from gatekeeping or abuse, general
Yep.
nasty behavior. They are really good about steering that down and knocking that out. They
Hmm.
embrace nerd culture, positivity, the different fandoms from pop, from trekking up north, gaming. If you're into gaming, if you're into monster movies, these guys have it all. And they're just an amazing team of people. You definitely should check them out. And then the Phoenix Sisters. These are my newest fans. I'm a new fan to them. These are my new podcast fans that I love them so much. They are just two cosplayers that love to do geeky nerdy things in their content, kind of like a drunk comedy thing. If you have not checked them out, their cosplay is amazing. They do an Elsa and Frozen. What's Elsa's sister's name?
Anna.
Anna cosplay. That's so good. Oh, I love it. That's, I think, one of my favorites. Um Definitely check them out. They also have something special coming up, which is very important. I want you guys to really pay attention to this. On January 25th through the 28th, they will be part of a fundraiser that will provide child-friendly comic books for children in hospitals and cancer centers throughout the USA. Excuse me. And there is the website. If you go to their channel, you can just kind of subscribe and give notification. They have it all set up already, ready to stream for the 25th. They're going to be they have a lot of different um uh streaming um windows open because it's a kind of like a marathon, and they have lots of different people that are going to be on. This is the list. Check them out, and if you can support their fundraising efforts in any way, please do so. If you can't donate, like, subscribe, and share. That does
Hmm.
so much for a channel because you may not be able to physically give, but doing that may make someone else aware of it that can. So definitely
Mhm.
help him out with that. Um, and that is something that is uh just amazing. You know, and I absolutely love those two ladies on there. They're just so much fun. They're down to earth, and they're doing this wonderful thing. They're participating in this wonderful event, and it's really important, so special. Now our next episode will be January 26th at 8 p.m. And we're going to talk about the women of the Orville. So we're going to talk about all the women of the Orville. It's going to be lots of fun. We're going to talk about the shows, the episodes, the content, how women are represented in the Orville. I think this show is so fantastic. It only has, I believe, 3 seasons. We need a fourth and a fifth and a sixth season. I think
Mhm.
this show could go so far. Unfortunately, Seth MacFarlane has had difficulty getting that done. And I just don't understand the networks. What are they thinking? This is a great show. And just to put my 2 cents in when it comes to the Orville, it is not a prodigy of Star Trek. A lot of people say that, but a prodigy will be like they take scenes from a movie and then kind of
Recreate him.
make it
Yeah, and
fun of
it's
it. Like
not.
what's that called?
It's
Meatballs in Spaceballs? Spaceballs.
yeah.
That's a prodigy of Star Wars. And
Yeah.
that was a good one. That was hilarious. These guys are unique.
This is more an homage or a tribute to Star
Yes.
Trek than
Yes.
and Seth originally pitched it as a Star Trek show. He wanted it to be a Star Trek show,
Hmm.
but they wouldn't go for it. So then he's like, "All right, then I'll just make my own Star Trek show."
Yeah. Absolutely, and
So,
I think he did a great job. I can't wait for January 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about all the female characters on here,
mhm.
and the great work that they do. And the fact that, here again, we have a male executive producer and writer, which is Seth MacFarlane, who really knows how to write female characters, who really knows
Mhm.
how to select a group of people who write female characters really well. And I think that that's a big deal. I really do. Uh, so I'm very excited about that, for sure. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so this is going to be fantastic. Any last thoughts?
I think that life is good and that, well, no, I just that the things that we watch and we talk and we read and we talk about always, they may like this one, it was written, 150 years ago. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
1884.
Oh my god. And 140. But it was still, it was written a long time ago, but it still has social and societal impacts today. And, that's the great thing about sci-fi is that it's always relevant.
Absolutely. It always is. That is the beauty of sci-fi. It always hits home with what's relevant. But we want to thank you guys for being here with us, for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on January 26th.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our new channel so that you can get notified when new videos come up. Thank you for watching our show.